All right, hey guys, I'm going to read The Brink of Day by Michelle Stimson to you guys, so follow along for an audio. All right, The Brink of Day by Michelle Stimson. Who is it? Mrs. Abernathy, the vice principal, demanded in answer. Miss, I can't tell you, Day said for the fifth time. Mrs. Abernathy crossed her arms as she sat down on the front of her desk to face him. Then how am I supposed to help you? I can't protect you if I don't know who I'm looking for. Suddenly, Day wished he'd never come into the office. Everybody knew the unspoken rule: snitches get stitches. He'd be snitching if he gave Mrs. Abernathy the name of the student who'd been harassing him at the railway stop and even threatened to push him into an oncoming train. I'll do you like that boy. What was his name? Octopus, the ringleader had said before his followers burst into laughter. Day watched the news most nights. He knew about Octavius Lanier, who was pushed into an oncoming train by a bunch of teens trying to steal his iPod only a few months earlier at a Dallas rail station, much like the one Day frequented every morning and afternoon in his route to and from school. If all Day's bullies wanted was a good fight, he could handle that. Day had seen his fair share of physical combat, won some, lost some, but these guys weren't the normal dudes interested in a few black eyes for a pair of shoes. Apparently, they wanted to kill Day. Have you told your parents? The vice principal prodded again. Day shook his head. What good would that do? His parents both worked. They couldn't take him to school and pick him up every day. Even if he had a car, Day wasn't so sure it would make a difference. Besides, he didn't want to run. He just wanted them to stop. Leave him alone. He'd never done anything to them except ask one of them if he could scoot over on the train. Man, I don't want you sitting all up on me like we gay. The boy had burst into a rage, standing up and pushing bad breath all up Day's nostrils. Day took a step back and pointed at the seat. Dude, there's gonna be like a foot between us if you move over. No, there ain't, because I ain't moving. Then the boy, whom Day later came to know as Justin Vanoy, looked over Day's shoulder and announced, Yo, this dude gay. And they all started laughing. Day's first instinct was to punch Justin dead in his mouth. No one had a right to call him anything except Day, whether he was gay or not. But since he'd begun taking martial arts classes 9 months ago, Day had undergone some major attitude adjustments. He thought before he acted, something his instructor taught him. Day, he warned, do not underestimate your strength. Consider your hands lethal weapons now. Just knowing that he could shove the bridge of this guy's nose up into his brain and cause instant death if he wanted to was enough to assuage Day's desire to fight back. He'd walked away and found another seat. He thought that would be the end of it. No such luck. Every day for almost 2 weeks now, Justin and another boy called Snook, and sometimes a third bully whose name Day hadn't learned yet, taunted him in the early morning hours before they boarded the train. More and more, they talked in low whispers about their plans to catch Day on a morning when the commuting crowd was thin enough so they could push him off the platform with few or no witnesses. At first, Justin had only joked about it, but as their conversation continued, it appeared they might actually be planning to carry out the deed when the time was right. One less gay person left, Justin goaded. Only Justin was a fellow student at Brighter Way Charter School on the north end of downtown. The other two must have been students at a nearby city public school. Day wasn't sure what would happen to the other boys, but since Justin was the main bully, if Mrs. Abernathy confronted him, that might help. Or not. Miss, if I give you a name, what are you going to do? Call him into the office? What's that supposed to do? Day asked. Mrs. Abernathy pulled her arms in tighter, looking like a pretzel, all wound up, Day thought. What did she know about stopping bullies anyway? True, she was short, she'd probably been picked on as a kid, but from what Day could tell from old movies, when Mrs. Abernathy was young, bullies would just say mean rhymes, stuff people in lockers, give them wedgies. In her world, if you called someone's mommy, there would be no more problems. Not today's world. Not in Day's world. And after you call him into the office, what? She bobbed her head, obviously trying to think of a good answer. We'll just have to see. I mean, you may end up pressing charges. Get a restraining order. What they're doing to you is against the law. Charges? Miss, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but the law only scares law-abiding citizens. From the raunchy tattoos Justin and his friends sported, Day was pretty sure they weren't model Dallas residents. Aside from all that, Day wondered how it would look if a guy had a restraining order against other guys. He stood and shook his head. Never mind, miss. Mrs. Abernathy shrugged. Suit yourself. I'll make a note of your complaint, but there's nothing I can do until I know who we're targeting. Okay. Day handed her his hall pass. She signed her name in the current time. Day left her office feeling that he'd run out of patience and peaceful options. He'd do what his father had taught him to do when people pushed him to the brink. Stand up to them and hope for the best. Metro Sentinel. Another teen injured in railway attack by Anthony Ellis and Janice Wilson, staff writers. Only months after the fatal tragedy that resulted in the death of an innocent teen at one of the city's transit stops, another teen, 17-year-old Justin Vinoy, was seriously injured. Witnesses say 18-year-old Day Eccles approached Justin. The boys exchanged a few words and then began fighting. But this was no ordinary fight. Sources say that Eccles had been trained in martial arts and practiced one of the most damaging maneuvers against Vinoy, rendering the younger boy unconscious. Paramedic reports say that Vinoy's nose was clearly broken and the area between his eyes had begun to swell by the time they arrived. Justin's mother, Angela Ripley, says she's done everything possible to keep her child safe. She had enrolled him in the suburban Brightaway charter school in hopes of availing him to smaller classes and a higher chance of graduating with his class. Unfortunately, police believe Justin also encountered his attacker at that school. I don't know why anyone would do this to my son, the tearful single mother agonized during the press conference this afternoon. He's a good kid trying to get on the bus and go to school. He's never hurt anybody. This other kid just came up to him and picked a fight. What I don't understand is why this Day boy isn't already under the jail. Although Day is in custody, police have yet to file charges. Our sources tell us that their investigation uncovered evidence from the school which sheds light on the situation, but they have not commented on what that evidence might be. The school's vice principal, Abigail Abernathy, also declined to comment at this time. A prayer vigil for Justin Vinoy will be held Friday at First Goodwill Church on Main Street at 7 p.m. Though Justin is expected to recover from his injuries, supporters are asked to bring donations to help pay for Justin's substantial medical costs. And this has been a reading by Mrs. Vernon for her students. Thank you and goodbye.